All right, deep dive time. We're jumping into a really fascinating area today. It centers on what seems like a simple belief, but it turns out its impact is anything but simple. It's all about what we believe about ourselves, our core qualities, basically.
Exactly. And we're drawing heavily from the book Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by
Mm.
Dr. Carol S. Dweck. Her work really explores how these like fundamental beliefs we hold about our own abilities, they profoundly shape, well, pretty much everything.
Right. So the core idea we want to unpack is this split, this difference between believing your intelligence, your personality, your character. Those fundamental things are just fixed, like they're carved in stone. Can't change them. That's the fixed mindset.
Hmm.
Versus believing these qualities, maybe they start somewhere, but they can actually be cultivated, developed
Right.
through effort, through learning. And that one, that's the growth mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to really get into the how these two mindsets, based on the research and the stories in the book,
Mm.
really affect what you want, and whether you achieve it, how you achieve it, and maybe most importantly, how you deal with challenges,
Mm.
because everyone faces them.
Oh, absolutely. And what I found really interesting from the book was the origin story. It wasn't like some grand theory pulled out of thin air. It started just by watching kids, young students, watching them wrestle with really hard problems. And some of them had this totally unexpected reaction. They almost seemed to love failing.
Yeah, love failure. Sounds weird, doesn't it?
Totally counterintuitive. But apparently seeing that kind of excitement about getting something wrong, that was the spark. That led to this whole deeper understanding of mindsets.
And it's interesting, because the term mindset feels very current. But the underlying idea, it taps into that really old debate. Nature versus nurture, right?
Hmm.
Why are people different?
That classic question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book does a good job of placing this within, a broader scientific context.
Yeah.
Think about Alfred Binet, the guy who invented the IQ test.
Yeah.
You'd assume he thought IQ was fixed, yeah. But nope. He actually believed intelligence could change. It could grow with the right opportunities, the right training.
Oh, I didn't realize that about Binet.
Yeah, and then you've got neuroscientists like Gilbert Gottlieb. His work really highlighted how genes and environment are constantly interacting, shaping development. Or Robert Sternberg, a big name in intelligence research. He talks a lot about purposeful engagement, developing expertise over time. So all this modern science points towards our capacity for lifelong learning. Brain development doesn't just stop. And the mindset concept, it explores the psychological side of it. Like, how do we actually engage with that potential we all have?
That context is so important. It shows this isn't just some self-help fad. It's grounded in decades of thinking about human potential. Okay, so with that setup, let's really dig in. Let's unpack how these two mindsets, according to the source material, really do create these fundamentally different worlds for people, how they influence your experience day in, day out.
Okay, so we've spent some time digging into Dr. Dweck's book, Mindset, and really exploring these ideas. And what keeps coming through is how this one belief, are my qualities fixed or can I develop them? It's not just a thought, it fundamentally shapes the world you live in. It changes, well, everything, how you see success, failure, effort, your potential, even how confident you feel, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We saw how that fixed mindset world, as the book describes it,
Mhm.
it creates this constant pressure, this need to prove you're smart, prove you're talented, all the time. Totally. And because of that, you tend to fear failure. Because failure doesn't feel like a setback, it feels like a verdict,
Yeah.
a judgment on who you fundamentally are. So naturally, you might start avoiding challenges.
Right. If you might fail, why risk it?
Exactly. You might shy away from effort, too, if you think effort means you weren't naturally gifted in the first place. Setbacks can feel devastating, like they define you. And even when you succeed, the focus might be less on learning and more on getting that validation. Or sometimes, as the book discusses, feeling kind of superior.
But then you flip it, you look at the growth mindset world, and it's a different reality, isn't it? Here, challenges aren't threats, they're opportunities. You can actually lean into them because that's where the growth happens.
Precisely. Effort isn't a sign of weakness. It's the path. It's how you get better, how you build mastery. And failure. It's not the end of the story. It's data. It's information you can use, a learning opportunity.
I like that failure as data.
Yeah. And your potential. In this view, it's basically unknowable. How can you know what you're capable of achieving with years of passion, effort, and learning? And confidence. It doesn't come from believing you're inherently great. It comes from the process, from developing skills, from overcoming those obstacles, from stretching yourself.
What feels so powerful and honestly kind of liberating is what the source keeps emphasizing. Mindsets might shape your reality in huge ways, but at the end of the day, they are just beliefs.
Exactly. They're powerful beliefs, but they are beliefs. And the book is very clear. You have a choice.
Absolutely. Even if, listening today, you heard some of those fixed mindset patterns and thought, ooh, that sounds a bit like me sometimes. And let's be honest, most of us have elements of both.
Oh, definitely.
Just knowing about the two mindsets, that's the crucial first step. The source suggests people really can learn to catch themselves, to notice those fixed mindset triggers when they pop up, and then, with practice, consciously shift their perspective towards growth. It's not just about identifying them. The book suggests change is really possible.
Yeah, because insights into cultivating that growth mindset. And building on that, maybe we can offer a few things for you, the listener, to reflect on, sort of drawn from the kinds of prompts the book encourages.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's one. Think about when you feel smart. Is it more when something is just easy, you nail it perfectly first try? Or is it more when you really had to work for it? Maybe you struggled, maybe you got confused, but you stuck with it and learned something new. Which of those feels more like, well, real growth to you?
That's a good one. Or how about this? If you notice that little impulse, maybe, that feeling of wanting to back away when something gets genuinely difficult, when you hit a wall.
The maybe this isn't for me feeling.
Exactly. The source suggests that could be the fixed mindset kicking in, trying to protect your ego, your current sense of capability. So how might you approach that moment differently? Could you maybe lean into that difficulty, see it as the prime place for stretching yourself, guided by that growth mindset idea?
It can also be easier sometimes to see these things in other people first, can't it? So maybe think about someone you know, someone who seems really anchored in that fixed mindset, maybe always needing to prove themselves, really sensitive to mistakes, always talking about innate talent. And then contrast that. Think about someone who seems pretty skilled in the growth mindset, someone who tackles new stuff, even if they look awkward at first, who keeps going when things get tough, who seems genuinely excited by learning, by the process. Can seeing those dynamics play out in others help you start to recognize them in your own thoughts and reactions?
Yeah, that's a really useful exercise. And another one the book touches on is how we deal with past failures. So maybe reflect on something from your past that at the time felt like a big failure, something defining perhaps. The source encourages looking at it honestly, not pretending it didn't happen, but crucially, understanding it doesn't define you.
Right. It's an event, not your identity.
Exactly. So the growth mindset question becomes, what did you actually learn from that experience, even if it was painful? And how can that learning, that data, become a foundation for future growth rather than a reason to shut down?
How about reactions to feeling down? When you feel discouraged about something you're working on, what's your typical reaction? Does that feeling tend to make you want to just give up, withdraw your effort? Or does it sometimes maybe even grudgingly motivate you to figure out what went wrong, understand it better, maybe even increase your effort to fix it?
And one last one, perhaps. Is there something you've secretly always wanted to try, like learn an instrument, take up coding, start a difficult project, something? But you've held back, mainly because you were worried you wouldn't be naturally good at it right away.
That fear of not having the talent.
Yeah, that fixed mindset fear. So
Okay.
what might happen if you decided to pursue that thing anyway, but made a conscious plan to approach it from a growth perspective, focusing on the process, the learning, the small steps, the effort, rather than worrying about some immediate perfect outcome?
These are great reflection points.
Yeah.
Now, just before we wrap up, it's worth quickly mentioning a few nuances the source brings up, because it's not always completely black and white, is it?
No, definitely not. Like, you might have a pretty solid growth mindset about your career skills, say, but maybe more fixed mindset about your artistic abilities or your social skills. It can vary by area.
Right. And also, while effort is key in the growth mindset, the book isn't saying effort is the only thing. Obviously, resources, opportunities, good strategies, mentorship, all those things matter too. Effort needs direction.
Absolutely. And having a growth mindset doesn't mean you think everything about yourself can or even should be changed. It's about believing core abilities can be developed if you choose to put in the work.
Good points. Okay, so wrapping up.
Yeah, there's this really powerful contrast the book leaves you with, thinking about looking back on life. One perspective is looking back and saying, I could have been. Feeling like there was this potential inside you that never quite got polished or used.
that sense of unfulfilled potential.
Right. Versus looking back and being able to say, you know what? I gave my all for the things I really valued.
Mm.
Fully engaging with the process, stretching your abilities, developing yourself along the way.
So, the final thought for you, listening today, after considering all these ideas from the source, what story do you want your life to tell?
Thanks for listening. Visit our library and subscribe below for more book summaries. This has been a Sprint Reads production.